And greetings. Happy Tuesday. Welcome to the Steve Deace Show here live and on demand on Blaze TV, radio, and podcast with Todd Erzin and Aaron McIntyre. I'm Steve Deace. We are brought to you by a brand new partner on the show here, but they won't be brand new to many of you. That's Kexy's Cookies. And I just have to tell you right now, they gave me a whole spiel here. I'm just going to narrow this whole thing down. All right?
Good.
All right?
Let the cookie master speak.
That's exactly right. All right? Get out of the way and let me cook. Better yet, let them cook. Let them cook. All right? Here is my live read for Kexy Cookies. Holy crap. Okay? That's my live read. All right? Holy crap.
They didn't actually send you a script for this, did they?
They did.
Why?
Yes.
Why? They just knew. They had to know.
I mean, holy crap, guys. These cookies, I mean, I took some to small group. Everybody looked at me. Holy crap was everybody's reaction. All right. My wife tried the almond croissant, one of their new flavors. My wife looked at me and she was like, holy crap. Okay. I sent one home after we kind of had those sober pre-tax day meetings with our CFO. And I just felt like everybody needed to pick me up after that. So I sent him home with one of the cookies. He texted me about an hour later. He goes, holy crap. It was everybody's reaction. All right. And I'm like, I texted him back. I told you. It almost made what the IRS did to us this past year. Yeah, actually, it didn't do that. I mean, it was still just dreadful, awful, and a violation.
Cookies can only do so much.
That's right. Even these cookies have limits. It was still a violation of our humanity, frankly, what happened there in that accounting meeting. Nevertheless, these cookies at least helped take the edge off when it was done. All right. These are incredible. Real high quality ingredients. I cannot recommend them more. Their slogan should actually be, holy crap, these are good cookies. All right. I tried one. I celebrated watching the Masters final round after I got done walking 10 miles that day so I could justify on my 75 hard sitting down for 3 hours and watching the final round of the Masters. And I celebrated with a Texas sheet cake cookie. And my reaction was, Todd.
Holy crap.
Oh, that was my reaction. Yes. All right. That'll be your reaction too. You'll get Deace 15 to get 15% off at Kexy.com, Keksi, Kexy.com. And no, I didn't break their Thunderbolt. All right. Kexy.com, Deace 15 to get 15% off at Kexy. Like sexy, but with a K. It says that right on the box. Keksi.com, Keksi.com, Deace 15 for the discount. All right. Coming up on today's show, we're going to get into some fake news or not. And I saw some interesting takes from people we know and some we work with and some we don't, that I thought we should ruminate on these things and discuss them and whether we agree, disagree, think they're fake news or not. And so we'll do that coming up in the next hour of the show. Pop Culture Tuesday, we're going to discuss the resounding success of the new film, The King of Kings, and the lessons that can be learned from it, both from Hollywood and from those of us that are, have been involved in recent years in trying to create an alternative to Hollywood. Because like I said yesterday, I'll have a more thorough review here at the end of the show in our final segment. But if this movie is not a masterpiece, it is about the closest I think you can get without being one. And so we'll talk about that for Pop Culture Tuesday. The bottom of the hour, a friend of mine, Pastor Mark Driscoll, is going to join us to discuss Holy Week. And Jesus is King of Kings. We'll do that to the bottom of the hour, but let's get started as we always do with Aaron's rundown of what happened while we were away.
What happened while we were away? Brought to you by the Maryland Man. The left-wing media, as well as activist judges, have continued their narrative that the Trump administration wrongfully deported a quote-unquote Maryland man. The truth is he's an El Salvador citizen who illegally entered our country over a decade ago and is a gang member. There's also a phony narrative going around. The Supreme Court last week demanded the U.S. return Abrego Garcia. Yesterday at the White House during a meeting between President Trump and El Salvador President Nayib Bukele, Secretary of State Marco Rubio was among those who corrected the record.
I don't understand what the confusion is. This individual is a citizen of El Salvador. He was illegally in the United States and was returned to his country. That's where you deport people, back to their country of origin. I can tell you this, Mr. President, no, the foreign policy of the United States is conducted by the President of the United States, not by a court. And no court in the United States has a right to conduct the foreign policy of the United States. It's that simple.
As per usual, Deputy Chief of Staff Stephen Miller went even further.
He's an El Salvadorian. That is his country of nativity and citizenship. He is an illegal alien in the United States. He has no lawful right to be here. He was issued a final order of removal from this country. And so it's up to El Salvador and to the government and the people of El Salvador what the fate of their own citizens is. We can't extradite citizens of foreign countries to our country over the objection of those countries.
At that aforementioned meeting between the presidents Trump and Bukele, the latter says his actions in El Salvador are mistaken by Western media.
Right. Murder capital of the world into the safest country in the Western Hemisphere. And, you know, sometimes they say that we imprisoned thousands. I like to say that we actually liberated millions. So, you know, like,
it's very good. Who gave him that line? Do you think I can use that?
Moving on, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent says things are moving pretty well with trade deals and says people are focusing too much on tariffs.
Look at the whole policy because, you know, again, not you, but others in the media can pick one factor. So right now it's tariff. But we have, you know, you mentioned we have tax coming up. We have deregulation. So, you know, it's a the leg stool, and I would try to think about, you know, what's happening. The tariff sequencing was always going to be first. The tax bill's going very well, and I think I've been pleasantly surprised at how quickly that's moving along. And then deregulation, you know, from our area on the financial side and in the rest of the economy, that takes a little longer, but that will start kicking in September, October, in the fall, and those are going to be very powerful.
The Trump administration's Joint Task Force to Combat Anti-Semitism announced it is freezing over $2 billion in multi-year grants and contracts to Harvard University in Massachusetts after the school's president released a statement saying the school would not comply with the administration's demands regarding anti-Semitism. Carmelo Anthony, the 17-year-old charged with murdering Texas high school star athlete Austin Metcalf at that April 2nd Frisco track meet, he was granted house arrest as a judge on Monday reduced his bond from $1 million to only $250,000. WFAA TV captured the moment the alleged cold-blooded murderer walked out of a jail on Monday afternoon. Anthony says he brought a knife to a track meet and stabbed Metcalf in the heart out of self-defense. President Trump issued his Easter greeting and message this week, wherein he proclaimed Christ as our Lord and Savior and went on to make a pretty clear presentation of the gospel. Again, this is the most powerful man in the world using his office to present the gospel. For reference, this time last year, you'll recall Joe Biden used Easter to promote the so-called Trans Day of Visibility. Pop singer Katy Perry, whose career has nosedived, was among those at the first all-female Blue Origin space flight, which successfully launched and landed yesterday.
I couldn't recommend this experience more. This is like up there with all the, you know, different tools that I've learned in my life, from meditation to the Hoffman process. This is up there because what you're doing is you're like really finding the love for yourself, because you got to trust in yourself on this journey. And then you're feeling the love when you come down, for sure. And you're feeling that strength. So I feel really connected to that strong, divine feminine right now.
Learning Chinese today. Today's phrase is, I'm feeling very connected to the divine cringe right now.
我现在感觉与神圣的畏缩紧密相连.
And finally, a palate cleanser.
Rule number 1 on how to take care of a baby. Always stand up or walk around when you're holding that baby. Don't you ever even think about sitting down. Don't you do it. You better not. You better get up and walk around, stand up with that baby. Do not sit down. You better not do it.
And that's what happened while we were away.
That's some solid parenting advice right there. Okay.
That's a hostage right there.
That'll preach right there. All right. Aaron's montage brought to you by our friends over at Backyard Butchers. Imagine having your family's beef supply delivered straight to your door for an entire year. You're thinking, that's great. Where would I put all that meat? I mean, we're in Iowa. Okay, it's not like people haven't offered me like whole cows and stuff in the past, but then my wife gives me the whole side eye, like, where is all that going to go for an entire year? Well, how about if it's Texas beef, pasture raised, directly to your door, a whole cow, but over 12 months. Every monthly box ships for free, no extra fees, no surprise charges. That's right. Every box ships for free. And it also comes without no surprises and no hormones, no antibiotics, no mRNA. Just clean, Texas-born and raised all-natural beef directly to your door every single month. All right? So if this sounds like your kind of deal, get the Steer in a Year subscription. That's good branding, by the way, right there, if I do say so myself. The Steer in a Year subscription. Go to backyardbutchers.com/steer. backyardbutchers.com/steer and use the code DACE at checkout to get 20% off. That's backyardbutchers.com/steer and enter the code DACE at checkout for the 20% off. All right, a couple of things I want to mention from your montage today, Aaron. And number one, and looking at the way that the White House brought most of the senior cabinet in with the El Salvadoran president yesterday to address the media, I think that they agree with the analysis I'm about to give. Park the car right here, take out the keys, and make them tow you away. When you have a winning issue, don't ever abandon the news cycle with that issue. Make something else push you out. But don't move on to something else. I think I told this story before. We had a senior strategy phone call on the Cruz campaign in the 2016 caucus. And this was in the late fall. And, Trump had not consolidated his support yet, that he was going to be the clear person we had to beat. And we're all still trying to, win our lanes, basically, And so right now it was basically us and Rubio trying to win kind of the conservative movement lane while Trump was over there doing his thing. And Jeb Bush's campaign was trying to, push Marco Rubio out. And they came to us with some Oppo research on Rubio. He had been for it was something obscure involving carbon credits on some bill in the Florida state legislature when he was a state rep there like years and years ago. All right. And so we had like this senior strategist call about whether we should, abandon, because we're just clubbing Rubio right now in the Gang of Eight, right? And should we pivot off of that to use this Oppo research? And it came around to me, I said, hell no. I mean, why would we? Every time this conversation comes up for us, it's a win. Even if Rubio has better talking points, he can never overcome the photo op of being up there with McQuisling and Graham to stay. He can't ever do it. So even on a given day, if he's got better talking points than us, the fact that this is what we're talking about separates us from him. Especially when we had just gotten the endorsement of, at the time, was probably the biggest immigration hawk in the Republican caucus, not named Tom Tancredo, in Iowa Congressman Steve King. We don't want to pivot off of this at all. We're not introducing any, I don't care how good it is, what kind of story it is, it cannot be better than this. This issue is why Marco Rubio is never going to be president, I said. If Marco Rubio never stands up with the Gang of Eight, Ted Cruz, we're not even on this call. Marco Rubio, Trump's not even running. Marco Rubio is the runaway favorite for this nomination. We're all here because he stood up and blew his chance at a system clearly setting him up to be the heir apparent. He blew it with the Gang of Eight. We're not leaving this space. That's what's happening right now with this MS-13 gang member that they're trying to tell you is a quote-unquote Maryland man. Okay? This can't lose. It cannot lose. Now, what's happening here is the other side is very desperate because there have been so many tragedies that we can put a human face on why we want border security that they are looking for something emotional now that they can manipulate on their end. And they're very concerned about the fact that Trump won Hispanic men by 10 points overall in the last election and did even better with young Hispanic men. And what's happening is another generation of Hispanics now, many of them, in fact, dreamers or dreamer adjacent. But the previous era of Hispanic voter, from the time we started polling Hispanics in the 80s until this last cycle, basically, the previous era of Hispanic voters, number one priority was, I want to bring as many of my people up from the squalor of Central and South America as I can. Which is why when we put marriage amendments on the ballot, Hispanics would vote overwhelmingly for us, but they would never vote overwhelmingly for our candidates. Because our candidates would not run on, we're going to essentially let every one of your family members, illegally re-immigrate to the United States. What's happening now is there's a generational changeover, is a lot of these now second-generation Hispanics, including people who are former dreamers, they're the ones living in the suburbs and the exurbs now. And in many respects, they've got more in common with Lake and Riley's parents than they do their own parents on this issue, because that could be their daughter now. That could be their son, who gets depressed, he got cut from the football team, or his girlfriend dumped him, and takes some fentanyl laced with so-and-so to self-medicate, and he's dead. That could be their kid now. They're on the other side of the equation. And they more identify as American citizens now and not immigrants. We're not a nation of immigrants. We're a nation of citizens. And so what the left is trying to say is, all that Trump rhetoric really isn't about securing the border. He'll come and deport you next. Look at this quote-unquote Maryland man that they're just gaslighting and lying about. So I understand what they're trying to do. It's actually a good tactic. The problem is they have a terrible example. Which is why, if you're the Trump White House, park the car in this space, turn it off, take the keys out of the ignition, and just squat here until they tow you away. You can't, there's no L here. Keep talking about this. The execution by the White House yesterday, by the way, chef's kiss. The El Salvadoran president saying, Bukele basically said, hey, dude, the Supreme Court has no power to tell me to give somebody back to the United States, and I wouldn't have the power to put a terrorist in the United States if I wanted to. Stephen Miller's back and forths, and again, Stephen Miller right now is, to quote the great prophet Caesar Flickerman, on fire. Okay, he's on fire right now, right? He's on fire. The best moment from yesterday was when Trump finally, after entertaining this for about 20 minutes, looked at Caitlin Collins of CNN and said in front of the entire press corps and his cabinet on camera, this woman just won't be happy unless we just let a bunch of rapists, thugs, and murderers into the country. She's crazy. She's nuts. Just said it right to her face.
Beautiful.
Yes. That's the Jack Nicholson from Anger Management. Yeah. Yep. That's where Hulk needs to channel his energy, is on this street here. Smash here. Smash there. Yes.
Now, before you get too excited, are you worried about Senator Chris Van Hollen's furrowed brow going down?
No.
There to
by all means, if I'm the White House, I'm offering to pay for the trip. You guys want to be the party of MS-13 gang members? Because let me tell you where most of America is. In fact, every American that would ever consider voting for us for literally a nanosecond, here's where they are. Make these people go away by hook or by crook. I don't care. This guy, by the way, we talked about this. I'm going to be on Megyn Kelly's show later today. We taped that interview before we did my show today. Megyn Kelly's introductory question to me, I now know what it feels like when I do this to people, okay? It was like, but I needed to hear it, okay? It was like literally, she gave me a 5-minute breakdown on this case before she asked me about it. And most of her 5 minutes was just going through the years and years and years of due process this guy has gotten. And I when she finally threw it to me, I looked at her and I said, what you just read is that an MS-13 gang member who's here illegally, and everyone agrees is here illegally, has been given more due process and is being offered more due process than a group of parents in Colorado right now whose state legislature are saying, if you do not let us medically kidnap your kid, if you do not let us psychologically damage your child against your will, we'll put you in jail.
Correct.
If they want to be the party of this, let them have it. There's an old saying in FM radio that when the DJ is getting sick of the hit song, the audience is just starting to get it, starting to get the words and mouth the words to it. Over there at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, just when you guys start to think, I think she's dead, Jim. I mean, I think there's no, nope. One more time for the folks in the back. Run it back. Run it again. Be in danger of exhausting this and making people bored by it, risk that way more than preemptively jumping off of this. You cannot lose this. If your enemies want to brand themselves as the party of terrorist organizations, let them do it. You're doing it now. Keep doing it. Keep coming up with new angles. Keep coming back to this. Keep recycling it. Hell, have Bukele come in here every week. We got weekly segments on our show, right? We're doing one next hour, right?
Weekly prison update with Bukele.
Bukele or not. We got fake news or not next hour. It's Bukele or not every week at the White House. All right? We can talk about Maryland man all day. Let's do this all day. How many days is it till the midterm of next year? Let's just do it every day. They let them own this. They want it. Let them have it. I want to share this with what the president wrote, if I could, that Aaron alluded to. Because here's why I want to share it with you word for word. This is literally the DNA of America, is what I'm about to read to you. This is how do we get from Puritans jumping on a Mayflower and signing the first governmental document in American history that they're here for the advancement of the Christian religion, to our rights come from God and government by the consent of the governed, and a constitution for a moral and religious people. So how do we get there? How do we get from Plymouth Rock to Constitution Hall? How do we get here? What's written right here that the president put out, and whoever wrote it for him. This Holy Week, Christians around the world remember the crucifixion of God's only begotten Son, our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. And on Easter Sunday, we celebrate his glorious resurrection and proclaim, as Christians have done for nearly 2,000 years, he is risen. Through the pain and sacrifice of Jesus on the cross, we saw God's boundless love and devotion to all humanity. And in that moment of his resurrection, history was forever changed with the promise of everlasting life. As we approach this joyous Easter Sunday, I want to wish Christians everywhere a happy and very blessed holiday. America is a nation of believers. We need God, we want God, and with his help, we will make our nation stronger, safer, greater, more prosperous, and more united than ever before. Thank you, and happy Easter. That is frankly a better Easter message that's going to get preached in many of the churches that some of you are going to visit for the first and only time of the year this Sunday. This is essentially, in a couple of hundred words, this little mini treatise here is the DNA of the country. That human worth and dignity matters so much, God put himself into human form, injected himself into humanity, basically. And God did not send his Son into the world to condemn the world, but so that through him the world would be saved. And once we come into right relationship with him because of what he did for us, we now exchange our flesh for his spirit. We have a new life in Christ. And when you have a critical mass of people that have been a part of that cosmic exchange, then and only then are you capable of limited government. And in fact, you must have limited government in that case, otherwise you'll have a tyrannical one. You'll impose things on people that they don't have a burden they don't have to bear. They're beyond that. They're better than that. They know better than that. And this is how you get to limited government. And that God is no respecter of persons. And government, therefore, must come from the consent of the governed. You don't have a divine right to rule. You have a divine opportunity not to go to hell. And whether you bear a crown or whether you don't, the one who bore the crown of thorns gives each of you the same opportunity. Choose wisely. And that understanding of human nature, both its importance in terms of worth, but its impotence in terms of how it can overcome its own craven instincts and base nature, is how you got a limited government. American exceptionalism, a meritocracy, the greatest country that's ever existed. It's why for 7,000 years of recorded human history, this country, yet still to celebrate its 249th birthday, is the longest concurrent experiment in self-government and liberty in all of human history. Because this is the DNA, this is the code that was cracked. You want to map the American genome? This is Trump's post. How much of it he wrote, we don't know. It does end in all caps. So he at least approved it. Everything Trump approves, has to have at least something in all caps at all times. Okay? That's a Trump trademark. Something has to be in all caps. Nevertheless, the most powerful man in the world allowed his visage and his platform to be used as a means of sharing the gospel. And the unifying vision that put 39 people in Independence Hall, 3 members of every state went there to debate a Declaration of Independence. Every colony had 3, and there were 13. 39 men there, 56 signers overall. What was the unifying vision that they ratified when they signed that declaration on July 2nd and then announced it to the world on July the 4th, 1776? Exactly what's in the post I just read you. That's it right there. That is mapping the American genome right there. And there's more history in there that has been in many of our American schools for a generation, if not more. There's more theology and providence in there that has been in many of our pulpits for a generation, if not more. So to that, I say more of this. Gentlemen, your thoughts?
Man, that entire, everything you've said since the montage has been as inspired as I've been in a long time. Even though we're in this moment, I can still see how far we are away from realizing it. But there does seem to be some critical mass there, an appetite. And you see President Trump raise his eyebrows when he likes what, and I know it might have been hard for you to hear, but I think Mukeli said something like, people are mad at me for imprisoning hundreds, but I don't look at it that way. I look at it like I'm liberating thousands.
Mm-hmm.
That's on that issue, which, like I said, what you just said about foot on the gas, inspiring. Now you take the gospel, which is every issue. Steve, what have we said in the past about how many issues aren't ultimately theological?
0.
That's right.
Yep.
What Steve just laid out in assessing the historicity of that reading and who we are as a people, a republic, if you can keep it, a moral and religious people and no other. That's the option for us on the table. We've got work to do. It's Holy Week. Let's make a new commitment to doing it.
Amen. And you look at as I pointed out in the montage, the juxtaposition of Joe Biden promoting Trans Day of Visibility on Easter last year. Oh, it just so happened to fall on Easter. And this year with a clear presentation of the gospel. For whatever reason, about 10 years ago, the Easter address from then UK Prime Minister David Cameron really stood out to me. I thought it was good, and it's something that I didn't expect coming from the UK. When I saw President Trump's Easter message, I went back and I watched David Cameron's Easter message address from a decade ago, and it pales in comparison. That which I thought was somewhat inspiring 10 years ago is basically tiddlywinks compared to this. More of this. As you said, that's the spirit that founded this country, and it's the spirit that will maintain this country going forward, if it is to be maintained.
I like doing this more than Vanta Black.
Oh,
I mean, listen, yeah. I'll do the Vanta Black. I mean, my job's to tell the truth, okay? But I just want to state for the record, I will do Vanta Black if the moment that we're in requires it. But just as a point of personal privilege and preference, I am much more in favor of this conversation than Vanta Black. I cannot be alone in that.
Which is why we're so stubborn on this show about addressing the Vanta Black.
Yes.
Let's do it. Let's do the thing.
Well, this Holy Week, we're doing the thing, but what's the thing? What is it? What does it mean to be King of Kings and Lord of Lords? We'll get into that here coming up in just a few minutes. Stay tuned. friends, our friends over at Voice of Judah Israel wanted to first and foremost say thank you so much for your generous support of their ministry since they came on board here more than a year ago on our show. Your generosity towards their ministry has made a tremendous impact. So they first and foremost want to say thank you. But then they also want you to know that the fight is not over. There's unprecedented challenges to take the gospel back to the Holy Land that gave it to the rest of the world. Remember, we've got over 6 million Jews who do not know Yeshua Messiah. There's another 3.5 million non-Jews, many of them Muslims in Israel as well. It is both one of the most prosperous and secular developed nations in the world, right? So the harvest is plenty, but the workers are few. But when you put in the work, just in the last bit of time, over 1,200 families are being helped monthly by your support at Voice of Judah Israel, delivering food, clothing, necessities, charity. Yes, all of that matters, but they're also giving what matters the most, word and sacrament. All right, they're bringing the gospel back to the Holy Land. So if you want to be a part of supporting this ministry or just maybe learn more about it, you can visit vojisrael.org/Steve. That's vojisrael.org/Steve. VOJ for Voice of Judah Israel. And together we can bring both practical and spiritual help to the Holy Land under the power and leadership and for the glory of the gospel. Speaking of which, new book out, King of Kings. Very simple subtitle. Someone needs to go to conservative subtitle consulting school. Your subtitle must be at least 30 words. I think I've even had 40 or 50 word subtitles, in fact. And the more, the merrier. We all know this. We all know this on the right. The longer your subtitle, the more copies you will sell. Isn't that a rule? No?
I don't know.
No, I just make that up?
But maybe for others, we get shadow banned.
Maybe that's another way of saying I need an editor. But that's your job. Okay. But the subtitle here, it's a book about Jesus. And the author joins us now. A friend of mine as well, Pastor Mark Driscoll out there in Arizona. Good to see you, brother. How are you?
Very good. Good to see you, my friend. How's Amy doing?
She is doing. She's doing very well. She's doing very well. Could be a little better. Could be a lot worse. You know, I mean, we've got 4 generations of our family coming over this weekend for Easter, and no, it doesn't mean we all get along, but nobody hates each other yet. So we're calling that progress, brother. We're calling that progress.
Bro, in this day and age, just the fact that they all get together and there's no firearms, that's a 2 thumbs up victory right there.
Indeed. You know? That makes you a patriarch in this era, no doubt about it. Okay. All right. So the concept of your latest is, and it's perfectly timed here for Holy Week, right? We've had this caricature of, there's been hippie Jesus, nicer than God Jesus, shaman Jesus, just tiptoeing through the tulips of Galilee, dispensing dime store life coaching, okay, and things of that nature, right? Okay. You're claiming in this latest book that this isn't the Jesus you've been told about, right? So, sometimes when people tell us that means heresy, right? But in this case, you actually want to preach the entire gospel here, not just the parts by church consultant edited.
Yeah, for us, well, I mean, it's Good Friday, Jesus' death we celebrate on Friday. Easter, we celebrate his resurrection. Over at Real Faith, I've got a special sermon for each that we filmed at a ghost town that's really cool but goes deep. And so there's about 1 billion ways to get Jesus wrong. There's only one way to get Jesus right. We saw this during the election when the progressives tried to hijack Jesus into a social justice warrior and just taking a few lines about caring for the poor and the marginalized and making that the totality of everything he ever taught, which is unfaithful. So in this book, trying to give the whole picture about Jesus, we get deep into the crucifixion and exactly what happened to him, and then also the resurrection. So it'll be well timed for the holiday season. But today, the whole image on the front is King of Kings. It says when Jesus returns, he'll be on a white horse. The good guys in the old Westerns always ride the white horse, that his name is faithful and true, that he has King of Kings and Lord of Lords tattooed down his leg. I call that Thug Jesus. And he comes with a sword to slay the nations and to bring justice. And so we can't just look at Jesus like he was for 30 plus years on the earth, but as he is right now and as he will be when he comes again in glory and majesty. And he comes as a warrior and he comes to bring justice to the nation. So, most of what we've been presented as Jesus is just kind of a sky fairy hippie who wanders around in open-toed sandals and a dress, sharing his feelings and trying to help the marginalized, which is not a very compelling vision of Jesus for strong men, and it explains why a lot of men historically have tuned out to Jesus. But now they're coming back to church. Young men are coming back to faith. Young men are coming back to masculinity, and they need an accurate picture of Jesus as tough and tender.
Mark, I saw a post first thing when I logged on this morning, and I just could not help but react. And it was a post from Andrew Tate, and I want to go back and it's in my feed here somewhere. You just made me think about it. He said he posted this yesterday morning. Number one rule to life as a man: never trust a woman. And I posted in response, I said, number one rule to life as a man: trust God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and he will make you into a man worthy of a woman that you can trust. Yeah. And the reality is there's going to be a surge of masculinity in this era. That die is cast. That energy has already left the barn, right? And we're so it's just a matter of where it's going to get redirected, right? So it's going to get co-opted by fiends like Tate, or it's going to be directed into constructive ways by the ultimate example of manhood. I mean, the fundamental fact of human history, the fundamental confirmation of our faith is the resurrection, as you know. That's what Paul says. If Christ be not raised, then why are we here, right? Okay? But the fundamental fact of all of human history is that God became a man, right? In fact, when John uses the term Antichrist at the end of the New Testament, he puts it upon people who deny the incarnation. That's who he calls antichrists. It's the fundamental fact of human history that the creator of the universe became a man. And so we have got to direct that energy into constructive places. Otherwise, it's going to end up in destructive places with deceivers.
Yeah, and there's guys like, Joe Rogan, Jordan Peterson, you mentioned Andrew Tate, there's the Red Pill community. There's this resurgent interest, and especially around the election, it really surged with kind of the tech bros and the alpha male, Avengers team that Trump assembled. But at the end of the day, the question is, what is a man supposed to act like, speak like, be like? And the good news is we have the perfect example in our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. He is perfectly tough. He's perfectly tender. He knows when to punch religious people in the government in the mouth, and he knows when to hug and embrace and bless women and children. And so only in Jesus do we get a portrait of a man that other men should aspire to. And so that's the whole point in the book. I'm answering the big questions about, how did we know Jesus is coming, and how does the Bible reveal him as tough and tender, and exactly how tough was he to endure crucifixion? When you understand what we celebrate on Good Friday, that's as tough as you can be, to bless your enemies and to endure the wrath of God for them. That's as tough as it can be, and that's as tender as it can be. And then we talk about the resurrection and why it's a historically verified fact, and everyone should believe in the resurrection of Jesus Christ. It's just historically evident beyond any shadow of a doubt. And so, all I'm trying to do in the book is just present the real, true, big version of Jesus in the Bible. I don't take any royalties from it. I'm a Bible teacher. Everything just goes to help get Bible teaching out. But the book is available at Real Faith, and also the Good Friday sermon and the Easter weekend sermon. I believe it's, by God's grace, really good work that gets deep without being too technical or nerdy.
You mentioned Good Friday, and listen, I'm a Christmas slap, dude. I mean, I've got a Christmas countdown, ornament on my mantle all year long. Or I am a Christmas slappy. But it is somewhat interesting that we are way more comfortable and way more into the revelry of celebrating God in human history as a baby than on the cross this time of year, what he went through on Good Friday. Let's start there. Just, without giving the store away, a couple of details of what people, to give them a taste of it, to understand truly what was suffered and endured here. When the Bible says you are not your own, you were bought. And then the Greek terminology is where we get the terms like coupon and redeem at a store. Okay. So it doesn't mean the manufacturer just took a bath and less money. No, they still got paid, but someone else paid that for you. Okay. So the price that he paid, that he endured, can you give a couple of examples of exactly what that would have meant in the first century?
Yeah, well, first, he spent a night being betrayed, up all night with such anxiety that he was sweating like drops of blood, which is hematidrosis. It's a medical condition for those who are under incredible anxiety. He then surrendered to the Father's will, not my will, but your will be done. He was then betrayed by Judas Iscariot, who was working with Satan and the government. And I always think it's interesting to note that Satan and the government were working together.
But you repeat yourself. Yes.
Yes, exactly.
Yes.
Then he's flogged all night. Many men were killed, simply died by the flogging. The Journal for the American Medical Association compared flogging to a shotgun blast to the bare back of a man at close range. Many men died from that. You've got deep tissue bruising. The bleeding begins. He's beaten. He's up all night. He's needing to carry the crossbar, and he falls. It's probably, at least 100 pounds. And again, the Journal for the American Medical Association said that he had a chest contusion. This would be the equivalent to a head-on car crash collision where you have no airbag or seatbelt and you're thrust into the steering wheel. Now you've got a deep chest contusion and you're going to die of an aneurysm or heart attack if you don't get medical attention. Then he's nailed through the most sensitive nerve centers in the human body, the hands and the feet. Then he's lifted up on a cross. It's dropped into the hole. Now his body is shaking involuntarily, convulsing. Death is setting in. And while he's going through all of that, he starts praying for his enemies. Father, forgive them. And he's about ready to die and endure the wrath of God and answer his own prayer, dying for our forgiveness. And then it says that they shoved a sponge into his mouth. And that sponge was part of the field kit for the Roman soldier when they would go off into, a deployment. There's no bathroom, so you would take a sea sponge, you would put it on the end of a stick, you'd sop it in wine vinegar as a disinfectant, and then you'd use it to scrub yourself. Some soldier shoves that into Jesus' mouth while he's praying for us, while he's dying for us. And so that's what he went through. He went through physical, emotional, spiritual, mental anguish. All of this is happening while his mother is watching and weeping. And to the end, he's ministering to the guy next to him. Today you'll be with me in paradise, as they both hang on the cross. And then Jesus says, my God, why have you forsaken me? I think it quotes Psalm 22:1. And in that moment, Jesus took our place and put us in his place. So he had death so we could have life. He endured the wrath of God so we could receive the grace of God. He was separated from the Father so we could be reconciled to the Father. And all of Jesus' suffering culminated on the cross of substituting himself in our place for our sins, enduring the wrath of God, which is the worst possible suffering of all. And all of that is just the love of God for us. And so, yeah, you mentioned even Christmas. Everybody loves Christmas. We don't get as excited about Good Friday. But even at Christmas, we celebrate the gold, frankincense, and myrrh that were brought to Jesus. The frankincense is an interesting gift. It is used to embalm a dead body and prepare it for burial. So they gave Jesus, the wise men did, myrrh. And what it says in John's gospel is that his body was prepared for burial with myrrh. It may even be the same myrrh that was gifted to him by the three wise men. So there is a direct connection between Christmas and Good Friday.
That's absolutely incredible. I've got about 3 minutes here. The best overall evidence for the resurrection, what would you say it is?
The existence of the Christian church. 3 men died on a cross 2,000 years ago. We don't know the names of the other 2 men. And today we only know the name of Jesus Christ. His tomb was not enshrined. The tombs of 40, 50 holy men were enshrined in that day. There's only 4 major world religions founded by a man. Abraham also is dead. We know where he's buried. The same is true of the Buddha. The same is true of Muhammad. Jesus' tomb was never enshrined. No one returned to it because he wasn't there. And 2,000 years later, Christianity is the biggest movement of any sort or kind in the history of the world. And if Jesus is dead, there is no such thing as the Church of Jesus Christ.
That'll preach. That's pretty good. I don't have a follow-up. That's a mic drop. All right, folks, you can go to realfaith.com and get the new book, King of Kings, a book about Jesus. King of Kings, a book about Jesus. And again, Pastor Mark, and he's would be entitled to this, The Worker's Worth is Higher, but he doesn't take any royalties or anything for this. So this stuff goes all back to the ministry and the preaching and teaching of the word. All right, realfaith.com is where you can go. That's realfaith.com. Good to see you again, brother, and happy Easter to all you guys. All right, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for preaching Jesus. We appreciate you, my friend.
You bet. Tell Grace we said hello. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
All right, bye-bye. Gentlemen, your thoughts?
That's 2 segments now. Just like I said, I'm
ready to run through a wall right now. I'm ready to run through a freaking wall.
Are we
going
to screw that up next segment with fake news or not?
I think we should just do the live reads and just shut it down. All right, just meet our contractual obligations and call it a day. Let's be honest. That's all the Blaze cares about. Just make sure we get the live reads in. They don't care about what goes on in between.
Okay, we just screwed it up.
See, we can't handle this. We cannot handle this. We've already proven it. Yes.
Easter. As a family man, I have increasingly grown into this being the holiday. That hits me the most. It in all of it. The Christian tradition, Holy Thursday, Good Friday ceremonies. It's just very, very special to just quiet yourself and immerse yourself in what is happening. You can start, if you have ears to hear and eyes to see, you can start to feel it, and God taking over. And that's the whole point of this thing.
I appreciated the emphasis that he gave towards the beginning of that segment on the type of man Jesus was during his earthly ministry, and he is today, as he is today. One of my biggest pet peeves, and a serious pet peeve, and I don't think this falls into the area of semantics or technicalities or actualities. You know, we love those. Steve especially loves it when you email him with technicalities.
Love it,
technically, actually.
Fetishize it.
I don't believe this pet peeve is an actually or a technicality at all. I see this over and over again from people professing believers. If Jesus were alive today, what would he say about X, Y, and Z? The reason I don't think that's a technicality or semantics is because if you are a believer, if your faith is real, the fact that Jesus is alive today should permeate every cell of your being. You should never use words like, if Jesus were here today. He is alive today. So I appreciated the emphasis that he put on that towards the beginning of the segment.
Amen. That, by the way, if that wasn't actually, that's the most important actually in human history. So granted, you can you can actually get that. You know, if you want to correct us every time we talk about or don't make sure we stress the point, Jesus is still alive. You are welcome to actually us all the way to the grave with that one, right? But just that's not most of your actuallys.
No,
it's not. No. All right, fake news or not is next. Stay tuned. All right, we're back here with Hour 2, live and on demand on Blaze TV, radio, and podcast. Steve Deace here with Aaron McIntyre and Todd Erzin. And all of you, and you can let us know what you think about what we think via the stevedeace.com inbox. Just do so by emailing the program, steve@stevedeace.com. That's DEACE. Like us on Facebook, MeWe, and Gab. You can follow me at Steve Deace Show on X, Instagram, and TikTok. Please subscribe to our new YouTube channel, at Deace Show on YouTube. That's at Deace Show on YouTube. And then finally, if you wouldn't mind, leave us a 5-star review wherever you access the podcast from, especially Apple iTunes. That still seems to be the number one platform people get our show from. So thank you, as we're going to stay in the category we're in now for the time being, because more and more events just keep emerging, indicate we have got to disciple the church here. Like what we talked about, what's not happening in Colorado right now. Thankfully, some folks have reached out to us.
Yes.
Unfortunately, it's not the large name brand media ministries in Colorado that everybody knows, but you fight wars with the soldiers you have. Amen.
You do. Amen.
So we're gonna give some of those soldiers some time on the show tomorrow.
Yes.
All right, to sound the shofar and you know, throw out Gideon's fleece and let's see who shows up for war. All right, and let's go. All right. So, but if you guys could help us to continue to resonate in that category, we would appreciate it. Leave us a 5-star review, please. And then many of you have. Thank you. We did now cross over. I forgot to mention this several weeks ago. We have finally crossed over 10,000 reviews. On Apple, folks, there's not a lot of shows that have that many reviews. So especially given the amount of 5-star reviews that are among them. Well over 95% of the reviews are 5 stars. So thank you guys very much. We love you. Thank you for showing your love to us. Hit subscribe, or if you are on Apple iTunes, follow. That way, every time we do a new episode, it shows up in your feed every single time. And we want to welcome back, one of our OGs here on the show, Freedom Project Academy. I still get asked about them. I said somebody asked me about them at an airport recently who recognized me. All right. So just because we're driving the woke crowd out of power in Washington doesn't mean that it all went away. They still run most of the government school systems in the country, trying to indoctrinate the next generation. And that's where Freedom Project Academy comes in, right? You may think, man, I wish I could homeschool. I don't know that we can afford it. We have to work. I'm not going to lie. Amy and I do not regret at all that that's what we did for our 3 kids. Our 2 daughters all the way through, and our son until he got into middle school. But I'm not going to sit here and lie to you and say I was building a business at the same time. We lived paycheck to paycheck many years. It was not easy. Okay, so it's not easy. It's noble, it's rewarding, but it isn't easy, especially in today's financial environment. So what's kind of a launching off point for an exodus out of the government school system that would fit more maybe with your family's needs? I think that could be Freedom Project Academy. We used this as a bridge program when we were schooling Noah for a while as well. So I saw firsthand myself just how good these folks are and what they do. They've perfected the art of online learning over the last 15 years. They offer live, anytime, homeschool courses for students, kindergarten through high school, all based on Judeo-Christian values. They're dedicated to mastery of the subject matter, where students read full books, write in cursive, study the full scope of history, graduate with knowledge and wisdom years beyond their government school peers. So if you want to help celebrate FPA's 15th year of doing this, they're offering their largest discount ever if you want to enroll for next school year. Go to freedomforschool.com, save 15% off of all courses when you use the code STEVE15. That's freedomforschool.com, freedomforschool.com. Use the code Steve15 for 15, and you'll get 15% off of all live, anytime homeschool courses. Freedomforschool.com. Take back your child's education. All right, let's march on here. Bottom of the hour, Pop Culture Tuesday. We are going to look at what's now become a phenomenon, and I think very deservedly. That's the latest from Angel Studios, the King of Kings. But let's play some fake news or not, shall we? I have selected 5 things that I have seen recently on X, which has, of course, under Elon Musk, become the #1 distributor and originator of cultural and political content in the world as a platform. Several of these are actually from either The Blaze or our fellow peers here at The Blaze that I found to be of interest that I thought maybe we could have an intriguing discussion about. Let's start with this one from Oran McIntyre, who is responding to the tallest statue in the state of Texas of the Hindu god Hanuman in Sugar Land. Its dedication in August of 24 was used to promote Indian immigration. Your community will have a civil religion. Will it be compatible with your civilization, Christian civilization, or not? That's kind of a way to say what I say all the time. Someone will always rule and something will always be worshipped. Well, our colleague Oran McIntyre made this point. I found it interesting. In any other time and place, the regime melting down statues of your ancestors and allowing the erection of a monument honoring a foreign deity would be a good indication that you lost a war. Fake news or not, gentlemen? What do you think?
Not. I endorse that. I retweeted it. Oran has a way of getting to the raw truth of a matter oftentimes, and he absolutely nails it here. It is important that this is not the coexist bumper sticker. We all get our statues. No, he's reminding you, they just melted your statues down. And now they're erecting this in Don't Mess with Texas land. This is not close to fake news. And yeah, we did ruin it, Steve. There goes my mood.
We got you through the commercial break,
yes,
at least.
I can't really ask for more than an hour, can I?
Aaron, you think this is fake news or not?
This is not fake news. And I think it was Megan Basham had a post yesterday. And I think it was a similar subject. I'm not sure if it was the same one that we're talking about here. But it becomes clear pretty quickly in this day and age which Christians are more addicted to religious pluralism and worshipful of religious pluralism than their own God, their own stated God.
We turn religious liberty into an idol, essentially.
Correct. Yes. Yeah. The notion that we just have to tolerate statues of Baphomet. That is a sentiment that is shared far and wide, seemingly, in the right America, at least the old right-wing America. Even some people that we like and respect and admire. But that is just that is antithetical to what we just talked about at the top of the show. Completely antithetical. Having the tallest statue in Texas be of a foreign god, a false god. We're not even allowed to say that it's a false god, are we? If you take those positions to their logical conclusion, we just have to tolerate this, we have to tolerate that. Well, if we have to tolerate statues of Baphomet and Hindu gods, are we even then allowed to call them false gods at all? If you take that to its logical conclusion. And the logical conclusion is no! Because if we have to tolerate statues of your gods, guess what that also implies? Eventually, we're going to have to tolerate your own blasphemy laws. Look at the UK. So it's just bass-ackwards.
And the reason you can't connect the dots on this should be 1 + 1 = 2 in an actual Christian culture. But as big, as shiny as that actual physical idol is, the reason that happens and you sign off and say, oh, okay, whatever, is because there are even way bigger, far more powerful idols that you worship to every single day down in Texas. And that's just where you've parked your car.
Allow me a follow-up, if you guys don't mind. Because while I agree that some of us have more adoration and genuflection for religious liberty than their own religion, while I agree with that, there is still such a thing as religious liberty. So there is a line here, okay? And to me, we are the only religious system. Christianity is the only system. It's the only one that accounts for loving your neighbor as you love yourself. Because while do unto others as you would have them do unto you has been stated in numerous ways and iterations in various philosophies and other religions, Christianity provides the only means by which the ability to love your neighbor as you love yourself is possible. And that is that you give up yourself and exchange your life for his. And then he is willing to live out his life and his ways through you, the hope of glory, Christ in me. It is no longer I who live, but Christ who lives in me. So we're the only system that provides this accommodation. Islam, if you told an Islamic scholar he had to love his neighbor as he loved himself, he'd laugh at you. And he wouldn't even have to have ever engaged in any violent act or spoken in any school of Wahhabism, Sunni or Shia, never set foot in Iran, never would want to. He'd still laugh at you. It's not true. In Judaism, separation from the Gentile world was mandatory. They did not have the indwelt Holy Spirit yet in the Old Covenant. And they would often fall into depravity and into spiritual idolatry because they didn't do that separation. In their own flesh, they did not have the strength to be in the world and not of it. They couldn't do it. All right. And so they would intermarry, they'd fall, they'd to foreign idols and religions and influences and would lose their own legacy and heritage and have to be exiled and or punished for it. Right. So a New Testament world is the only worldview where loving your neighbor as you love yourself can be something that can be civically expected in mass, provided you have a critical mass of those people that have that Holy Spirit indwelt in them. Are we okay so far?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Would it be therefore safe to say that because I love my neighbor as I love myself, I am not to coercively impose myself on my Indian neighbor who wants to worship one of the, by some translations of Hinduism, there's anywhere from tens of thousands to hundreds of thousands of worshipful deities within Hinduism. So I will not coercively impose myself on my Hindu neighbor, my Indian neighbor. However, the very same worldview that commands that of me also says there's only one God. And if I have to use the power of the state to stop you from turning my country into an altar to false gods or demonic entities, then I kind of feel like I've already failed. You see what I'm saying? That it would be an understanding of a civilization worthy of Christianity, that I am granting you this accommodation of loving my neighbor as I love myself, but I will not tolerate, nor would you even contemplate, putting forth some kind of relic of conquest over me and my culture. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I totally agree. But
like I go to Nana's house, and she may not like every way that I'm living right now and everything that I think right now. And so because she's Nana and she loves me, and I'm still her little boo-boo, she'll tolerate it. But if I go over to Nana's house and say, I'm going to now take the things about me that you don't agree with and don't like and impose it on you in your home, Nana's then going to do what?
See, now we're getting somewhere.
She's going to take the clothing pin to you and tell you to go pick your switch. And so that's why you wouldn't do that. You would just know that. You would just know not to take advantage of Nana's love and accommodation by taking the next step of saying, well, now I'm going to go ahead and plant my flag where yours resides. Does that make sense at all? The subtlety of this at all? The subtext?
Well, it makes sense, but that's obviously, Texas isn't grandma. Texas has different idols than grandma's love. That's the problem.
What would make people angrier in College Station, Texas?
There we go. I think I know where you're going.
What would make them angrier? All right. A burnt orange flag.
There we go.
All right. A giant burnt orange flag flying over City Hall or a Hindu statue. What would make them angrier?
The former.
And let's flip it around. What would make people angrier in Austin, Texas?
The former.
All right. A Gig'em rebel yell?
Yes.
Okay.
They'll go to war on that. You know they will.
Or a Hindu statue to a demon.
This is what I'm talking
over
about.
City Hall.
So why wouldn't they take over your land? They see you'll let them do anything.
That's my point. That's exact. If we have to say we're going to systemically respond to something like this, we've already lost.
Yes.
We shouldn't have to say it. Grandma should not have to say, go pick your switch. You should know better because of the law, because of the love and accommodation she has shown you. You should respect that to understand this is her home. The same reason she's willing to accommodate me, even though I may be thinking things and living things she doesn't appreciate, the same thing that causes her and prompts her to still love me just the same is the same thing, though, that would cause me not to dare step to her on this level for how she would likely respond if I tried. Does that make sense?
We don't have grandmas like that. We don't have men like that. They're not here.
Is that dynamic caused, though, by just sheer laziness, or is it caused by people wearing our own jerseys who are religious pluralism absolutists?
Both.
Or is it a combination of both?
Yeah.
It's both.
All right. Number 2, this is from our colleague, Jason Whitlock.
Oh my gosh. Whose baby is that?
Excuse me? It's ours.
Wait, but how?
Okay, I'm sorry, but gay people can't have a baby?
Yeah, but like, where did it come from?
Excuse me?
Excuse me?
Wow, you are not allowed to talk like that.
That is so invasive.
Okay, but like we were with you last night and you did not have a baby.
Yeah, and you guys said that after dinner you were going to go to a rave called Bulge Dungeon, and now today you have a baby.
We should probably cut it off there so we don't get dinged for copyright on YouTube.
Yes, NBC Universal is very strict about that. But this is a skit that SNL did panning so-called homosexual adoption and surrogacy on Saturday night. And I saw a lot of our friends and colleagues talking about this as the vibe has shifted, man, if SNL is now ridiculing this. So what I love about Jason Whitlock, even when he frustrates me, and he does at times, and I love that about him. But I think what frustrates me about Whitlock that I also love is I found someone that's even more contrarian than me. I have found someone that is even more willing to say, no, than even I am. Okay. And he does that here. And in his response to this clip that a lot of our peers in our movement are affirmatively sharing, he says, quote, "This SNL skit is important. The deep state has clearly advised its Hollywood elites to try to appear normal This is not real progress. It's a temporary pivot. Stephen A. Smith running for president as part of that normalcy campaign. This is all coordinated. In other words, this is all this is all AstroTurf. It's all Cherry Girl. None of this is real. It's silicon, enhancements of normalcy, but it's not the real thing. Agree or disagree? Fake news or not? What do you think?
I'm totally with Whitlock. I saw the exact same thing you were talking about. Many people saying the tide is turning. I'm not prone to watching every SNL video that comes out, but enough people were saying it. I better watch it myself. And I said, come on, we cannot be. We are so, as conservatives, so easily suckered by the laugh track. There's no way you should believe that Saturday Night Live, the way they have behaved for a long time now, has suddenly turned the corner on this issue? Like, no, I don't believe they if all they can do is laugh at themselves, that's how you know this is a con. Because look at what we're talking about here. We're the frozen baby body parts, the transgender butchering. No laugh track.
Yeah. This has been my contention with Bill Maher. I think he's very entertaining. I do think that he comes from a place of genuineness, realness.
Limited by his worldview.
Yep. But I don't. The problem I have with a figure like Bill Maher is that he accurately deduces a lot of problems and he shows a lot of self-awareness seemingly over and over again. But then he goes out there and he says, I'm voting for Kamala Harris and you should do the same thing. And he's just kind of a court jester. Kind of a similar dynamic with this. I mean, SNL has gone out of its way to queerify their show. They have. They've made a point about hiring the LGBTQs, and now all of a sudden they're just on a dime flipping around, and they're making fun of that at a time when it seems like non-mainstream comedians are becoming mainstream and really kind of shifting the Overton window again of what's allowable to make fun of in polite society. Something is suspicious here, just out of the blue.
It was really out of the blue.
Yeah.
Really out of the blue. Because I did some research. Hey, are we just overreacting to this? Are there other times when SNL in recent years
maybe
has
they've been
gone
building
out,
to this?
building to this?
Yeah, just completely rando, wasn't it?
No.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't put it past some sort of level of coordination here. Hey, we found our center here. We're now normal. No. We're talking about this, as we discussed yesterday, as Colorado is discussing a bill that would take parental custody away from parents if they misgender their toddler. No, don't fall for this.
In my never-ending interest in seeing if I can find a way to declare victory in every situation, could we at least say, if Jason is right and this is just all a trope, okay, and a false flag, it's at least a victory then that they think they have to lie to us with this stuff at least.
Sure.
Rather than drag queen storytime hour with hairy rectums in your kids' faces at the library. At the very least, it shows that they have recognized that they have to do a better job of propagandizing.
I don't think it shows that even that. Why do they? I don't think they really are worried about what the audience they have to propagandize the 10:30 at night audience. No, I think I think they're looking at something dark, and it is kind of funny though. So they tell a joke. I think there's no there.
So nihilism is what you think it is. All right, the next fake news or not, can we not play this clip again? Because once was enough.
It is the highest high, and it is surrender to the unknown.
Perfectly played.
Trust.
Aggressive.
And
passive
this whole journey
I love it.
is not just about going to space. It's the training, it's the team, it's the whole thing. I couldn't recommend this experience more. This is like up there with all the, different tools that I've learned in my life, from meditation to the Hoffman process. This is up there because what you're doing is you're like really finding the love for yourself, because you got to trust in yourself on this journey. And then you're feeling the love when you come down, for sure. And you're feeling that strength. So I feel really connected to that strong, divine feminine right now.
By the way,
fake news or not,
That is not fake news. That is true faith right there, and it's more faith than most of the people down in Texas letting a giant statue be built have.
I hate you.
That is true faith. She got on a rocket into space based on her faith. What are you doing?
We've completely undone everything good that happened in the first hour.
Well, I don't know. You picked the topics.
You should have given an answer that was that good. Aaron?
I mean, that was some high-quality pagan gobbledygook right there.
Yes, it was.
I'm going to make some of you mad. You should not let your children play this game, or your teenagers even. But I have played Grand Theft Auto 5. And that game, there are no people who are spared. That game satirizes everyone. It's set in a fictionalized Los Angeles. I mean, everyone. No, there are absolutely no one is spared. And she sounds exactly like a satirical version of some actress or pop star that Rockstar Games satirized in Grand Theft Auto 5. I mean, that was just gobbledygook. Where is your brain? Your cranium is empty. Nonsense.
Unintentional self-parody is always the best. All right. This next one is from yours truly. And I mentioned this to Pastor Mark last hour, but my response to Andrew Tate saying, number one rule to life as a man, never trust a woman. My response, number one rule to life as a man, trust God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and he will make you into a man worthy of a woman you can trust. Fake news or not?
This is not fake news, and this is kind of the other side of the coin with what we talked about with the Netflix show Adolescence, is that they're identifying, it's kind of a truth mixed with a lie. They're identifying maybe an issue, but then they don't have a positive example of, hey, what are the role models you should be teaching your young men to follow? This is kind of the other side of that.
Because it would actually undermine all of their worldview if they did.
Correct. This is the other side of that coin. Okay, don't trust. Well, then what do you trust? And you provided the answer there. This is always a two-way street. Okay, the battle of the sexes is always a two-way street. It's never just a en masse guy problem. It's never just an en masse girl problem. People want to point the blame. Oh, it's all the men. By the way, are men immune from criticism on this show whatsoever? No. But there's also the other side of this coin as well. There's a woman problem and there's a guy problem. Why? Because we're all we are all sinners. So people try, especially, and I've seen the Tates do this, they try to paint with a broad brush, and then there's other counter signals that say try to paint all men with a broad brush. We've been through all of that. Feminism is cancerous. But I think you provided a positive vision, a good retort to that quip from Andrew Tate. But it's not fake news.
I believe in what, it's not fake news. I believe in what you said so much that it's in Latin on my wedding ring. Duo hac nulla unus fient. Two shall be made one. That's the ball game, folks. And Andrew Tate, I think, just resents that fact. But he's got a large following. I mean, his Pied Piper act. And early on, when people, who's this guy and why are people caring and talking about him? But here we still are, Steve. How long has he been on our map of?
Several years.
Yeah. There's a lot of him out there, a lot of them. And again, our church isn't doing really well.
Harvest
and
is
that's
plenty,
why.
but the workers are few, brother. Yeah. Yep. All right, I giveth and I taketh away. All right, because I'm just going to tell you right now, this is some fake news right here. I'm sure Rob Schneider, when he posted this graphic on what's really in your Reese's peanut butter egg, I'm sure this is all factually true. I'm sure it's all factually true. We got to put this in context. All right. In the context of how good these things taste.
You have to put poison in context.
Everything needs to be put in its proper context. We owe everything proper context. Soy lecithin. Lecithin.
You're going to counter stallions this thing, aren't you?
I am. Soy, great American. Soy lecithin is never tasted better. All right. So I am sure that everything Rob Schneider posted here is correct. But when it comes to the goodness and the greatness of Reese's Peanut Butter Cups, you can do it. In fact, I can do it quite a bit. All right. So got to put it in its proper context. We're all dying anyway. Okay. It's worse ways to go out. All right. He died of, like in Ralphie in A Christmas Story. He died of soap poisoning. He died of Reese's peanut butter cup poisoning. There are worse ways to go. Worse ways to go. Far less dignified ways to go. So in a matter of context, I'm just going to preemptively call this post by Rob Schneider fake news. Aaron, your thoughts?
Man, I like saying the word emulsifier. That's a fun word.
Next time I go to the movies, instead of asking for Reese's peanut butter cups, I'm going to say, hey, can I get some emulsifier? They're going to look at me like I'm an Islamic terrorist, is what they're going to think, right? But, if that's what emulsifier is greatness, Todd.
I'm not going to throw stones at you because I saw a very similar toned video of a guy who went to Costco and got the rotisserie chicken and explained
there you go
how it's just totally filled with poison. And I watched the video. I'm like, nope, I don't believe you. I don't want to believe you, so I'm not going to believe you.
Everybody else gets to do it. Why can't we? Everyone else gets to do this all the time. All right? What's better? Tell me what's worse. The juice or soy lecithin. What's worse? Soy lecithin is tasty or the juice? For once, I'm the lesser of two evils. And I'm dying, literally, probably, looking at that graphic. I'm dying on the hill of soy lecithin and emulsifier. And I'm dying happy. A hell of a lot happier than those that are into the juice. Then they're dying. I'm dying happy.
You know what I'm about to become a hard and fast believer in, even if there's Wikipedia tells me there's no science behind it, is duck liver. I took some of that. It's an extract, some French medicine. I took that this weekend. Everybody else got hit hard with the flu. I took it. Didn't get it.
And you tiptoed through the raindrops, brother. Yep. See? I wonder if emulsifier and soy lecithin does that for you too. Let's find out. I'm willing to take that risk.
See, it's this lowering of the bars. Pretty soon, this is how they're going to give you their mRNA vaccines inside the peanut butter cups.
Well, at that point, even I have at least a standard. I have some standard. It's not much of one, I will admit.
As has been made clear over the last 5 minutes.
I mean, I prefer my poisons sent to me in certain vessels and distribution points. And mRNA is not one of them. All right? Never got pericarditis from eating a Reese's peanut butter cup. Just got everything else, apparently. More in a moment. Back here on the Steve Deace Show, we are powered by our friends over at Relief Factor. Maybe you're thinking chronic pain is just going to be my jam. Maybe not. No guarantees here, but over the years, about 1 million people have tried the 3-week quick start from Relief Factor, and about 70% of them saw such good results in 3 weeks or less that they ended up sticking with the product long term. So what do you have to lose? It's just $20 to find out and see if you don't see a difference in your pain in just 3 weeks or less with the drug-free supplement created by physicians, though, who can prescribe drugs, known as Relief Factor. How does it work? Well, that supplement goes right after the inflammation in your joints that's likely manifesting and symptomizing as that chronic pain, that lingering stiffness, achiness, and soreness that just seems to never give way. Well, Relief Factor wants to take it away. Again, no guarantee, but 70% odds for $20 is a pretty good bet. You want to make that bet today? You want to try it today? Go to ReliefFactor.com. That's ReliefFactor.com, or you can call them at 800-4RELIEF, 800-4RELIEF, or ReliefFactor.com. All right, let's get to some Pop Culture Tuesday. And I referenced this yesterday at the top of the show. Let's go a little bit more in depth. I don't think it's possible to do spoiler warnings for this audience on a movie about the Gospels. Spoiler warning! He's not dead! Spoiler alert! Okay? I don't think there's any way to do spoilers. although some of the specific ways things are depicted are done so powerfully, I will not, things that you understand, theological concepts you get, events many of you in this audience know of, but some of them are depicted so poignantly, particularly, I guess, what we would call the great exchange at the end, Christ exchanging his life for yours. How do you explain this to a child? And Amy and I both said after we saw the film, we were both choked up in tears because, yeah, a child could get that, but it was also done so that we could get it as well. And the way that this is depicted is, it breaks you in all the right ways, the ways that make you not ashamed, but thankful, grateful, not, shunned. Angel Studios' new film, The King of Kings. Again, if it's not a masterpiece, it's as close to a masterpiece you can be without being one. The animation is absolutely gorgeous and beautiful. It uses several different styles of animation within the same film. Some scenes, it does go back into the Old Testament to explain the Passover. And again, you're trying to explain this to small children, right? So I talked to our buddy Billy Hallowell over at CBN about the movie over the weekend. And Billy's like, yeah, I'm going to go see it on Monday. But, somebody I know thought that the movie was really good, but didn't think it went far enough. I was like, Billy, Charles Dickens is telling the story of the gospel to his preschool age son, okay? In a way that he would, at most this kid's in like the first grade, okay? In a way that he would understand. I mean, did you expect him to just take out the cat of nine tails and just whip his kid in the back with it? Hey, let me pull off this mucous membrane. This is what Jesus went through. I mean, we're talking to kids. You know what I'm saying? I mean, how hardcore do you want to get? Somebody else I talked to was like, well, could it have gone more into the Old Testament? You know that it's hard to keep a kid's attention for 80 minutes, let alone 3 hours. All right? There's just something about us at times. I think we'll complain if we're hung by a new rope. All right? That all being said, this movie is masterful. There are several different animation styles. It is beautiful to look at. The MacGuffin of using Dickens doing dramatic readings of the gospel to his kids, like what he did to promote A Christmas Carol back in the day, where he would do dramatic readings on stages all throughout Europe to reenact A Christmas Carol and Ebenezer Scrooge. Having him take that same that same talent and apply it to telling his own children the gospel was a masterstroke of storytelling. And the way that the animation then puts Dickens' own son into the events, as his imagination now grab holds to what he's hearing from his father. And at one point, his father says to him, because his son just can't get enough of the legend of King Arthur and Excalibur. And he says, your story is based on mine. And then he says, in fact, you know what? Pretty much all your good stories is based on mine. And folks, it's spectacular. I don't know how else to describe it. I can't envision how a better way to bring the gospel to small children in ways they would understand, in communication styles of the era they're born into at the same time. But as adults, I will just tell you, folks, there were several times watching this, I got choked up. Several times. I had to swallow hard. And Dickens walks his son kind of through the greatest hits album of the synoptic gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Kind of the greatest hits, the adulterous woman, the feeding of the 5,000, the raising of Lazarus. I mean, so this would be the, Jesus is great, the gospel greatest hits is essentially what Dickens walks his son through. The motivations of the religious leaders who opposed him, of the origin of what a Passover lamb is. This is all done. This is all explained. Why human nature is the way that it is explained. It is made very clear in the film that only God can forgive sins, and that this was one of the main reasons the religious leaders, they called him a blasphemer. When he said the Son of Man has the power to forgive sins, he is claiming to be God. He is claiming a power only God has. So he is effectively claiming to be God. That's when I love when people say, well, Jesus never claimed to be God, except for all the times that he actually did. Okay? I mean, if you're going to tell me Jesus never claimed to be God, you're going to have to at least take the entire Gospel of John, the entire thing. You'll have to take verses from almost all of the other 3 Gospels, but you'll have to take the entire Gospel of John and erase it from the New Testament to claim that Jesus never claimed to be God. You'll have to take the entire Gospel of John and just rip it right out of the tome. Because the entire Gospel of John is a Christology. This is just beautifully done. It is wonderfully done. I cannot recommend it more highly. It is, again, if it's not a masterpiece, it's the closest to what you can do and not be one. It's the best animated film I have seen in several years. In fact, some of you may say, and you wouldn't necessarily be wrong, well, Steve, have you seen what's become of Disney, Pixar, and that whole troupe? You got me. You got a good point there. The recent animated fare, with a few things, Inside Out 2 last year was very well done. But for the most part, yeah, this has not been a banner, last few years for the animated film era. I think we all agree on that, right? Okay. So let me tell you then, this is in the class of a Shrek. To me, the 3 best animated movies of the modern era are Shrek, The Incredibles, and the very first Fox multiverse Spider-Man film that they did. Those to me are the 3 best in terms of quality of animation, storytelling. I think those are the 3 best animated films of the contemporary era. I would put this movie in the class right underneath that with like an Up. Well, you know what? I forgot about Toy Story 2, and Toy Story 3 would be in that class too. I would put this in the class of an Up, a Toy Story 1. I mean, I would put it minimum right below the best we've produced in this genre. And Shrek goes back to what, 99? So we're going back 25 years, quarter of a century, right? I mean, it's a masterpiece. We're very close to it. And it deserves all the success that it has gotten. Congratulations to Angel Studios. If this had been done by Pixar or Universal, who does the Despicable Me films, and I would put this in the class. You guys know I love the Minions and Despicable Me. That would be in the next class too, there with a couple of the Toy Story films and Up. I would put this movie in that class. And if Universal or Pixar had done it, this movie would have opened to $100 million this weekend because of the P&A publicity budget that they could have put into this. Nevertheless, it deserves all the success that it has gotten. It was the #1 new release in studios this weekend. Word of mouth will be excellent. It's got an A+ cinema score. It's at 97% among users at Rotten Tomatoes right now. It is frankly a flawless film. I did not find a weakness in the movie. Things maybe that could have been done better, but I think the film is without a flaw. And we were captivated, and we were emotionally moved several times. I cannot recommend it more highly. And the success of this film is more proof that if you actually honor the subject matter, people will show up still. And so if your brands are failing, it's a you problem. It's because you're not giving people the content that they want. You're giving them the content you want them to have. I used to say about the Republican Party for many years pre-Trump that the Republican Party wants to serve, you probably heard me say this, Todd, for many years. The Republican Party wants to serve the voters it wishes it had, not the voters it actually does, right?
Right.
And we can all argue, and if our good buddy Daniel was here, he'd argue with us, and he'd have some really good arguments. We could all argue that it could do a better job of serving the voters that it has right now. But we cannot argue it is doing more to serve the voters it has right now than it ever was before. It wasn't even attempting to before. It wasn't even attempting to. And what the success of this movie shows is when you honor the subject matter, when you do not turn Noah into a paranoid schizophrenic, that he's essentially Jack Nicholson's character in The Shining, and you've turned Noah's Ark into the Overlook Hotel, okay? And Noah does everything other than just drop a "here's Johnny" while just turning on his family and everything else with cabin fever. All right, when you don't do that, when you don't turn Moses into a paranoid schizophrenic who's unsure if God is speaking to him or not, and God is an 8-year-old child, when you don't do stuff like what Hollywood's done in recent years, there's more money, more money, more money. There's all kinds of money. So it's really up to you. Do you want to give us the content that we want? When you do, there's money to be made. Say what you want about Minecraft, not my generation. I find it to be mindless, but you know why people love it? It honors the source material of the fan base, and the fan base showed up. Well, this honors the source material of the greatest story ever told, and people have shown up. It deserves to have even more people show up this weekend for Easter weekend. It is a phenomenal film. I cannot recommend it more highly. All right, Todd and Aaron, I'll get your thoughts on what I just said, because I don't think either one of you have seen it yet, right?
Nope.
No.
Okay. First, let me talk about our friends over at realestateagentsitrust.com. In these unprecedented times, before you venture into this new thing, maybe you forgot what it was called, right? We used to have this thing where we put up a home for sale, bought another home, somebody bought ours, okay? It was called a real estate market. Remember those. Over the last few years, we haven't had one. We had a scamdemic, and then we had Let's Go Brandon, which was kind of another scamdemic. So we didn't really have a real estate market for the last 5 years. So you're going to need a refresher. Some things have changed, like the interest rates. All right, so make sure you've got an agent you can trust to guide you through all of those changes and get you to a satisfactory conclusion of where you ultimately want to go. A lot of times that agent, by the way, shares a love of Blaze content with you. A lot of times they're from right here in this audience. We've got agents in our database from all over the country whose track record of success we verified, or we wouldn't recommend them to you. All right, so get started today at realestateagentsitrust.com. The name says it all, realestateagentsitrust.com.
Well, I mean, I'm going to talk to my family about hopefully getting out and seeing it this weekend. We enjoyed House of David as a family for many of the reasons you talked about, the respect for the source material. When it extrapolates, it does so, in my estimation, very faithfully to elevate the fundamentals. I mean, the last episode is a tour de force, and I want more. So I trust... I know even if it was through gritted teeth, you would have told the truth on this thing if you had to, because we don't have time for forfeits. We need the real deal, and I'm so glad you found one.
There's a meme that goes around right-wing circles. It's so over, we're so back. Boy, we had so many of those moments on today's show. It's we are so back, first segment. Then we had moments of it's so over during fake news or not. And then we had moments of we're so back.
Sounds like a country in the midst of a spiritual war.
Exactly.
With a bunch of back and forth.
Exactly. Yeah. Yes. So this is undeniably, I don't think it's an undeniable, or I think it's an undeniable truth that if there is still a market for the story of Jesus and it's presented in a clever and clear way, the fact that there's a market for that means that something is still ticking in our heart collectively in this country. Now, is it ticking in enough people's heart? We're going to find the answers to those questions over the next several years. But I don't think it is up for debate that as long as there, as much as you can glean from market indicators, I think that's an incredibly positive sign that this movie has seen so much success already. And it's about the most important and most beautiful story ever told. And it's ours.
Amen. I think we're at the point that we were at with immigration where we didn't need new laws. We just needed a new president who would actually enforce them and look at the difference, right? Okay. I think we can apply the same thing to what's happened in pop culture, right? This idea that there are systemic problems. The industry is being forced to evolve because of changes in preferences of delivery systems from streaming into home theater and actual theater and everything else. But the reality is still the same. If you generate good content, people still want to consume it. If you honor the source material of the content they already demonstrated, if you want to create brand new stuff with all your own tropes, go forth and do it and see if it'll work. But when you take people's beloved content and try to agitprop it into your tropes, they're going to reject it. That's been proven over and over again. If you take their beloved IPs, and to some degree, it is the best-selling book of all time. To some degree, the Bible, the biblical narrative is an IP. It's just not ours. Okay, it's intellectual property from another world. Okay, but it is an IP. If you honor the source material of a proven, beloved IP, people will support it. They keep proving that over and over again. So just like we now know Joe Biden and his regime just didn't want to secure the border. They wanted it open. We just now have to assume that these people, when they won't do this with the subject matter, like Netflix putting a woman as the voice of Christ in The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. I saw Eric Metaxas say today, they might also put Dylan Mulvaney there while they're at it. Just go ahead and go all the way with it, okay? Now you know, you just don't want to. You don't want to give us what we want. Message received, now we know. We're going to stick around and do overtime for Blaze TV subscribers. For the rest of you, we'll see you tomorrow, noon to 2 Eastern, right after Glenn Beck, right here on Blaze TV. Until then, Romans 8:28.